Alright, so in my earlier video, I was trying to establish a motive, a hidden motive for um, President Trump's signing of the executive order banning birthright citizenship in his country. And I was trying to establish this motive because that's the belief of some people that he actually did not expect his executive order to be unchallenged, and what he actually wanted was to force the issue of the interpretation or the reinterpretation of the um, 14th Amendment by the Supreme Court. So he wanted basically to force the issue back to the Supreme Court for another interpretation of the 14th Amendment, such that um, the new ruling would exclude foreigners coming to the United States for the sole purpose of birthing their kids on United States soil to gain U.S. citizenship for their kids. Well, hello, my name is Kofi Daniel, and please consider subscribing to this channel because that would be great help to me, and it would really encourage me to keep this up. And so that was what I talked about in my earlier video, and um, what people do not really or probably know is that this is only a continuation of something that President Trump started in his first term, because way back in um, 2020, at the beginning of the year 2020, um, there was a revision of U.S. policy to ban birthright citizenship to the United States, and all United States consulates and embassies across the globe were instructed to refuse the issuing of visas to applicants that appeared to want to come to the United States or want to go to the United States um, with the sole intention of giving birth in order to gain citizenship for their kids. At the same time, the instruction was that they could not ask the applicants directly whether they were pregnant. If somebody wants to travel for birth tourism, it presupposes that they are pregnant and they want to give birth in the country of destination, and consular officers were not allowed to directly ask applicants whether they were pregnant or not, because that would have probably led to other legal issues. And yet they were expected to be able to determine whether applicants were intending to travel to the United States to give birth. And so how would they do it? They had to only rely on suspicion. So when applicants applied to enter the U.S., consular officers were at liberty to decide whether or not to grant visas to the applicants solely based on their suspicions of whether or not the applicant was pregnant and intended to give birth in the United States. So that's been ongoing for years. Ever since Trump's first presidency, people have been refused the world over on suspicion of trying to enter the U.S. to give birth. So this is only a continuation of what Trump started way back in 2020. What happened was that although consular officers were refusing people, what essentially was happening was that people would have two interviews. When people applied for visas, they would have an initial interview at the consulate or embassy where they applied for their visa, and then if granted visas, they would have a second interview when they arrived at the port of entry, basically at the airport. Okay, so what happened and why that happened was because although Trump stopped or tried to stop birthright citizenship or people entering the United States to give birth, it was not illegal for foreigners to go and give birth in the United States. So what basically was happening was that consular officers had to determine people, it wasn't the act of giving birth in the United States was not illegal. What Trump was trying to do during his first term was to make the reason for giving birth in the United States the issue. In other words, consular officers were to discourage or stop people who wanted to enter the United States to give birth with the sole purpose of gaining United States citizenship for their babies. Okay, and that's quite distinct and separate from, for example, a person that had to go to the United States when she was pregnant to have medical attention that she probably could not access in her own country. So that was different, but that also was the loophole. That also was the loophole that people, it appears, were using to still enter the United States to give birth. What essentially Trump is trying to do presently in his second term is to entirely stop that loophole, so that people, even when they're able to give birth in the United States, would not access U.S. citizenship. Okay, so that's what basically is happening at the moment. Oh well, so now that the executive order has been signed by the president, what are the options for people seeking to enter the United States to give birth, whether for medical purposes or whether for birth tourism? What are the options that people have to go around this executive order? Now, to be honest, there is no going around it, except that, as expected, there is going to be a lot of court litigation over the issue. So the signing of the executive order is not the end of the story. It's only the beginning. And there are a group of states that have come together. The attorneys general of the states have come together to litigate or to take the administration, the Trump's administration, to court over the issue and to claim that his action is illegal and that you cannot change the Constitution by executive order. And so they're going to seek court injunctions and temporary restraining orders against the implementation of the president's executive order. And that is, so we have a brief window when that's going to happen, when people, once the courts are able to issue the injunction and restraining orders as expected, then federal agencies would have then to suspend the implementation of the president's order and continue issuing birth certificates to kids of foreigners born on U.S. soil. So the option that you have right now is within this time frame, and nobody can determine how long this time frame is going to be. So there is still the opportunity, it is expected that there would still be the opportunity for foreigners who are able to enter the United States to give birth and acquire U.S. citizenship for their kids in spite of the president's executive order. But there is a catch. And the catch is this, that, like I said before, the consular officers across the globe in U.S. embassies still have the power to refuse you entry or refuse the granting of visas to applicants to enter the U.S. in the first place. However, if you're able to arrive in the U.S., if you're able to pass through the first interview and then pass through the second interview as well, because what normally happens is that when you go to the embassy and you are able to prove to the consular officers that your intent of visiting the United States is not for the purpose of acquiring a U.S. citizenship for your child, then you would have to face a second interview, and that second interview appears to be even more critical than the initial interview at the consulate. Okay, so people have to be very well prepared, and usually you'd have to send to the United States the same documents that you applied, that you used in applying for the entry visa. You have to present those documents again at the port of entry, and then you have a second interview. That is critical. Many people have had the visas to enter the United States over the years and have been turned back at the point of entry. So that's to be noted. Okay, so there are essentially two barriers to cross when it comes to this. Okay, and but if you're able to go through these two obstacles and enter the United States, then you have this brief window, in spite of the president signing of the executive order. If the court injunctions and temporary restraining orders are put in place by the courts, then you'd have this temporary window. But there is still a catch there, because what might happen is that the federal agencies, even though the courts might put a temporary restraining order or the president's decision or executive order, the federal agencies that issue citizenship are not required to work within any specific time frame. So no one can compel them to issue citizenship certificates to kids born by foreigners in the United States, because they can slow down their action. Okay, they can slow down their action and cite any number of excuses for that, such that they wouldn't probably still issue birth certificates to kids born in spite of the restraining orders that the courts might give. This is purely speculation. Let me say that this is just analyzing and speculating over what might happen, but this is a very distinct possibility. So I'm just saying that this is something that might happen, and so despite the possibility of going round this executive order by the president, if the courts issue the injunction and restraining orders, that this still might happen to still prevent people from having the citizenship granted to their kids. All right, so I just wanted to say that, and let's just just see how things turn out. And I hope the people that are so desperate and anxious about this would have something to smile about at the end of the day. Please take a moment, subscribe to this channel, and that's going to help me to be able to bring more content and be more consistent. Thank you.